Love to hear what a fine fellow I am. Glad my wife is here to hear what a fine fellow I am. I just wish my wife's mother could be. Wally's actually a true story. Wally actually flew with me in Vietnam. He was he climbed in the left seat on a mission. He wanted to go to see how medevac worked and everything. And so I was teaching him the ropes. We had to pick up in a rice paddy, and we made tactical approaches into these areas to get in as safely as we could. And so we come down dead riverbed, jumped over the trees, turned our tails on the fire, and sat down. And we were making some pickups from the Marines that day. And as you know, with the Marines, there was a hell of a lot of confusion going on down there. If you've got any Marines in you, they're careful. And if you ever been in a deal like that where everybody's shooting and shouting and screaming, and the patients are laying there, and you're trying to get them on, and you understand what it means to pucker. Puckering is when the cheeks from the lower part of your body slowly begin to envelop your ears. The best definition I can think of puckering. So, but I look over old Wally, and he's puckered, and he's sitting there, and his head's going like this, just over the cockpit. And I thought, that's weird. Back to the patients, get the patients on, let's get the hell out of here. And back to Wally. And there he is, with his head, like a Siamese belly dancer. And, he's a weird guy anyhow. So, but his head is going like this, and I couldn't help it. I just broke down and laughed out loud. Wally, don't miss a stroke. His head going like this, and he said, "Laugh, you son of a bitch, but it's harder to hit a moving target." By the way, that's a true story. I wasn't Wally. If you picked up the newspaper today, I'm kind of torn here. Because on the front page they got the medal, and they got an Army helicopter pilot who's going to get the Medal of Honor. Now right now, there's two of us, three I guess, two of us. Bruce Crandall, who's from the movie We Were Soldiers Once and Young. You probably saw that movie, Too Tall and Bruce. Crandall thinks he's the greatest helicopter pilot that ever lived. Of course, I am the greatest. I mean, the first time I meet this guy, we're at a party or something, he's one of the late guys. He comes up and knocks on my head and I said, "Who in the hell are you?" He said, "You are now the second greatest helicopter pilot ever lived. I am the first. Now we got number 3 here." So I'm anxious to see what's going to happen when we all get together and start screaming about who is in fact the greatest. But what a great story that is. If you pick up the newspaper today, I just finished reading it. This is what this guy did was an example of. He was picking up his own people, wounded American soldiers, which is what we did day in and day out. And what a great story! I can't wait to meet the guy. He's an old Vietnam helicopter pilot, and they, to me, are the best kind of guys. So you guys, I understand you're studying Vietnam, right? Talk about Vietnam. I would say the myths of Vietnam, there's all kinds of them. I'd recommend two things to you if you want to get into it. Do you teach your kids Vietnam? Do we teach the kids in school?
Yes.
We do?
Yes.
I'd love to sit in one of the classes compared to the way that war has been portrayed. But Nixon wrote a great book on Vietnam, about the myths of Vietnam. For example, who won Tet? Who won Tet? It was probably the most devastating defeat in the history of warfare for the enemy soldiers. But if you were an American in those days and read our newspapers, you would have thought that we lost. The American soldier lost. We never lost on the battlefield, Vietnam. The way the media portrayed it, it was as if we had lost that battle. The VC and the NBA, I think, had like 70,000 in the uprising. They lied, of course, about the Tet shutdown. They weren't supposed to fire, they weren't supposed to fight, they weren't supposed to do anything during Tet. They lied and cheated like communists do. And we weren't fooled. We were ready. And we killed like 40,000 of the 70,000 and captured 6,000 to 7,000 others. There's never been a defeat as decisive as that, probably in the history of warfare. But it was never told. But this is a great book. Nixon sent this book to me personally and to some of the other guys who served in Vietnam. He wrote about it to cover the myths that were perpetuated during Vietnam. And I found this book too, it might be interesting to you, from Schlesinger. This guy was a great writer. And there's some conflicts between the two books. But he, twice a Pulitzer Prize winner, he explained that World War II may have been the precursor to our involvement in Vietnam. When the Japanese took over Indochina, Korea, and went into China itself, and were threatening that whole part of the world, President Roosevelt became alarmed. We had tremendous, the French did, rubber plantations. The Michelin rubber plantations were in Vietnam. And we flew over them many times, they were fast. And at that time, rubber was very, very important to our security needs. We needed that rubber, and Roosevelt was worried about that, and so he froze. This was, I think, in July of '41. He froze all the Japanese assets in America. Guess what happened? A few months later, Pearl Harbor, Japanese attacked us. And then we go on about the Roosevelt was hoping that he could turn Vietnam into a trust kind of a thing, like Berlin was, and Russia was on board, everybody was on board. Britain wasn't, because they wanted the French to go back in there. Roosevelt, of course, did not want the French to go back in there because they had milked that country for 30 years. He was against colonialism. The British still had colonies in Burma and other places in the world, and so they weren't on board with this. But anyhow, make a long story short, the French went back, Dien Bien Phu, and then devastating defeat for them. Ho Chi Minh, communist, covered himself as a nationalist, and then the rest, of course, is history. And I hope you are teaching these kids the truth about Vietnam, because our generation certainly did not know the truth. I'm going to tell you about a side of Vietnam that never got reported, and I don't know if you guys teach that. Courtney, do they teach it?
I don't know what you're about to say.
She's on the front lines with it. So, and by the way, let me just say that guys like me are just kind of instruments for people like you, because you are the most important. I know if you don't know what's going on in America today, or the horrible things that are going on in our education, and some of the things that we see as we go around the country and go into high schools, all over the middle schools, all over the country, the middle honor guys, what we see in the education, I mean, the teachers may be the salvation, the eventual salvation of our country, in my mind, really. We've got to raise patriots. There's no democracy. A democracy cannot survive without patriots. Teaching children patriotism, and that became a dirty word. It was hokey to a lot of the intellectuals and other people in this country. The people I talk about in the courtrooms, the classrooms, the cloakrooms, and the newsrooms in America. You guys are in the classrooms, and you are right on the front lines. And if you don't grow patriots, if you don't teach these young kids how America is exceptional, we can talk about that if you want, about why we are exceptional, or certainly were very, very exceptional. And if they don't know that it's not enough to say that you love America, you have to say that you will support and defend America. That's what makes it patriot. Love is BS. Dear, I'm sorry, I do love you. But she wants proof, you know, she wants some proof, usually expensive proof. The key is that you understand that support and defend are the keys to patriotism. Patriotism is the key to democracy, and it cannot survive unless people like you grow patriots, teach patriotism, make the children understand why America is different and it is in fact truly exceptional. So we are instruments for you. You are on the front lines. We are a resource in our character development program, which you're going to get tomorrow, I think. And our goal is to do anything we can to help you with the kids across this country. And our program is all over America. Some states have turned it into the primary social studies program in their states. And thanks to guys like Wally and our foundation, we hope that before we die, guys like me, we'll get this into every state, every school in the country. Now, the subject is Vietnam, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about an aspect of Vietnam that you probably haven't heard much about, or you certainly would not have heard much about in my day, when I was a Vietnam veteran. I won't go on too long, and then we'll open it up for questions, because I'm as anxious to hear what you've got on your mind, for sure. But the great victory in Vietnam, and these guys got my book? You do have my book. It's brilliant. I can't believe I didn't get Pulitzer for that. But you will find in the book, it's the one book I know that covers the humanitarian aspects of Vietnam. Now, you had some counterinsurgency teaching today already, going, whatever they want to call it today. What's the key thing in all that, in counterinsurgency? The hearts and minds of the people. No insurgent, no guerrilla, no terrorist, nobody can survive any environment unless they have the hearts and minds of the people. In Vietnam, we call this winning the hearts and minds. That was the key to what we were doing there, to stop the guerrillas, to get the people to understand that they should be with our side and not the other side. Now, when you're fighting an enemy who will butcher women and children, butcher children in front of their parents, parents in front of their children, in the most gruesome way possible, that's a tough guy to deal with. Suicide bombers, very difficult to deal with somebody who will die for their cause, or who will kill you and your family for their cause. But that's what we were dealing with the Viet Cong in Vietnam. So the humanitarian effort was a lot of the medical thing. I was a helicopter ambulance pilot. When I went to Vietnam in early 1964, I hate to say that, a lot of you were never born by 1964. That's why you don't know much about it. There was only about 16,000 Americans fighting in that country, mostly as advisors. We had 5 helicopter ambulances in the country. We covered the whole country. Our mission was American soldiers, any American or government official or something like that, or to evacuate them and get them to medical care. We had, my first commander was a guy named Charles Kelly. If you read my book, you'll read about him. He was probably one of the most remarkable soldiers America ever produced. He was Irish, which is a very good thing. He was a veteran of World War II, had almost been killed in action, lied to get into World War II. He was 15 years old. Those were the kind of patriots we had in those days. 15-year-old kid going into war. The only soldier at that time who wore all 4 of the great badges of the era, the combat infantry badge, the combat medics badge, flight wings and company. He was a well-rounded soldier. But he was also a little bit of a mess. He had been court-martialed, not once, not twice, but 3 times in World War II. Now, in my army, if you got a letter of reprimand, it was the end of your career. So he got out, he became a high school principal, married his high school sweetheart, but couldn't stay away from the army. I wanted to come back when he heard about Vietnam, wanted to go to Vietnam, and the Army looked at his record and said, hey, no way. And then they had a special board for him at Fort Sam. He was a medic like I was, a service corps officer, helicopter pilot. And they decided to give him another chance. And they sent him to Vietnam. That was the best decision that any board has probably ever made. So he gets to Vietnam, and I remember, never forget the day I met the guy. I had just got to Vietnam, and me and another guy, two newbies, we called them FNGs. You sort that out. We just got to the unit, and at lunch, and Kelly came in. Of course, I'd heard about this guy with the 4 badges. And he sat down, and his very first words, never forget, he said, "We never covered ourselves with glory today." He'd been out, I saw him take off that morning, went on an operation in the South China Sea, and one of our helicopters, one of the American helicopters had been shot down. It was the old Banana, the H-21, went down in the water. Kelly almost beat it to the water. He was over it when the crew was jumping out of the helicopter in the water. He wanted to put his skids in the water, didn't have a hoist, and he didn't have a rope on board either. Big mistake. So he hovered over those guys and watched them drown one by one until they were able to pull one guy on board. They should have saved all of them. They saved one. We pulled him in with the litter. And he came back to lunch when I first met him, he was just absolutely devastated. So that's the first time. He sent me up north. We talked about the humanitarian effort up there with Doc Smith and the Mountain Yard Hospital. What a great woman she was. But in the meantime, we got word from headquarters, this guy named Stillwell, Vinegar Joe Stillwell's kid, a 1-star general. We called him Cider Joe Stillwell. But we didn't call him that to his face. He was a World War II veteran. He flew gunner. He flew when he shouldn't be flying. He was just crazier than hell. And he actually went down, he jumped out of an airplane, his parachute didn't open, and he lived. And then later on, he crashed into the South China Sea in a fixed-wing airplane, and the guys were still waiting for him to walk up off the bottom of the ocean. He was a tough guy, and Kelly was a tough guy too. And they went head to head. Stillwell wanted to take the helicopter ambulances away from Kelly and put portable Red Crosses on them, and then fly missions. We were flying on. We only had Americans for missions for patients in those days. And put portable Red Crosses on them, and Stillwell told Kelly, he says, "Kelly, the Surgeon General is a personal friend of mine, and he will agree with me on this." And Kelly says, "He may be your personal friend, but he ain't no damn fool." And so that was the beginning of the relationship. And so anyhow, to make a long story short, Kelly came back to the unit, and he says, "Guys, they don't wish us well. They want our helicopter." First time since the Civil War that a medical resource was put under the control of a combat arms operation. No concern for the patient. So Kelly said, we have to prove to them that we can do what we're supposed to do better than anybody else alive. And he started flying. At nighttime, in weather, in combat, on the battlefield, and he ignored the fact that he was supposed to be primarily for Americans. He began to pick up civilians, armed, Vietnamese, men, women, children, enemy as well as friendly, whoever was hurt. And he was doing it at night, single engine aircraft, without escort, something that had never been done on the battlefield. They don't do it today. So he then began to build a reputation. In the meantime, Stillwell's trying to get permission through the chain of command to take control of the 5 helicopters. And the rest of us, I'm right out of flight school, I'm trying to keep up with this guy. And when I got there, I couldn't start the damn thing, let alone fly. And so I remember one mission, the 20-minute warning light come on. Now, a lot of things can happen to a pilot, but there's nothing worse than running out of fuel. If you run out of fuel, your career is over if you live through the crash. And so my 20-minute warning light is on, and he's got more patients for me to get. He says, "Brady, we got some patients here, go get them." I'm looking at that damn light, I'm listening to him. And I thought, holy shit, but I did not want to let him down. I went and got those patients, and as I was going down the runway to take them to the hospital, the engine quit. I did a hovering out of rotation. So that's how much we worked to keep up with this guy. And then everything changed on 1 July 1964. He had promised me, prior to that, he put 2 aircraft on Sauk Train. That's where all the battle was. Everybody was fighting down there. He took the aircraft out of Saigon, put them down in Sauk Train, and took the aircraft out of north where I was flying initially with the Mountain Yards. And he said, Brady, I'm gonna have to go to Saigon and fight this battle, but Stillwell, you can come down here and take my place. And so went on and on. I said, when? And he said, you can come down on 1 July. I'm going to the headquarters. The fight is still on. So 1 July came around, and we're at lunch. I got a call, and it said, Kelly's down. So, that said something else. So I ran for my helicopter, jumped on. I don't think I even waited for a co-pilot, and I headed down south. And then I get a call, word on the way that we got him out. Slick shift went in and got Kelly and his crew out. And I just feel so good. He was at Ben Long. So then I go into Ben Long, and I see one of my birds, one of the Red Cross birds in front of me and pull up behind it, and I'm happy. Everything's cool. And so here's Ernie Sylvester, who just recently died, a great pilot, dust-off pilot, great soldier. And he was only a lieutenant then. He flew with Kelly a lot. He's sitting on the skids of this backseat of this aircraft, and he's crying. Wow, Ernie, what's going on? And he kind of shakes his head, and there's a body bag behind him in the helicopter. He said, that's Kelly. Just tore us up. So to tell you how well he had trained us, the operations guy comes up to me and Ernie, and he says, you know what, guys? Forget about it. There's still patients out there. Go get the patients. And I almost punched the guy. And so Ernie and I jump in, we go back to the area, and I can see it today, just as clear as a bell. There's Kelly's aircraft. He had gone into the area to pick up some American casualties. As soon as he was sitting down, he started screaming at me, get out, get out, get out, we're under fire. Kelly's last words were, when I have your woman. Bullet came through the door, through his heart, and right into the door beside him, and he died on the spot. There was a doctor on board, and when he was shot, he did this, and the blades hit the ground and rolled the helicopter up in the wall. The doctor had a broken leg, everybody else got out alive, declared him dead on the spot. So we went back to get those patients. And there's the helicopter in the ball right there, and the patients are here, same spot. I didn't like that, because that's right where he was shot. And sure enough, as we come in on approach, boom, 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 they just filled us with holes. We jumped over the tree line, checked the aircraft, see if it was still flyable, and it was flyable. And then I remembered the area, and yeah, there's a tree line here, Kelly's aircraft is in the ball right here, flat terrain here, the enemy's obviously in these 2 tree lines, and there's a perfect square here of banana trees. And so I thought, if they can get the patients there, I can come in, low level, jump up over, sit down in the middle of those banana trees, and I've got good cover. But that's what we did, and we got the patients out. So the next day, it's 1 July. I slept in Kelly's bed that night, wrote up the missions, and the battalion commander called me in next day. I was now officially in charge. I don't think he would let me go down there because there was so much action, and he just loved to be where it was. So anyhow, I took over on 1 July just like he promised. The battalion commander called me in, he says, I hope you guys learned a lesson. He said, I knew somebody was going to get killed. He was a lieutenant colonel. And he says, I thought it would be one of the young pilots. I didn't think it would be Kelly. So you got to change your ways. It's night flying, it's all this stuff. I told him, we're not going to change our ways. We know that we only know the way he taught us. And I said, besides that, this will be a great, it wasn't much of a battle, 16,000 Americans. The way he taught us is the way we're going to fly. So he said, he didn't own me, he owned the Delta. He didn't own me. And so he couldn't do anything about it. He was trying to tell me. And before I left, he gave me the bullet that killed Kelly. So anyhow, that was the birth. From that moment on, Kelly's funeral was big event. All those villagers, all those people that had come out to walk, all entire villages would come out when Kelly would come in to pick up their patients, would come out to see him. They idolized him. Westmoreland picked up on that. And he wrote a great story about Kelly. And used him as an example in his last words, "When I have your wounded," as an example for all soldiers to emulate. And that was the end of the Portable Red Cross. That was the end of that. They then began to bring more helicopter ambulances into the country. And by the time I was there in my second tour, we had 144 of them. In 10 years, or whatever the period was that we were there, we rescued almost 1 million souls. Thanks to who? Kelly. So then, just a word on, it wasn't just the medics, not just us who were doing this wham, this winning of hearts and minds, but other people, doctors would come, educators would come. They would build orphanages, they would build roads, they would vaccinate the children. They went into the mountain yard area and they found these kids with this stomach deal, you know, like a protein deficiency. And I guess it's caused by lack of protein and in their food. The mountain yards were savages, right? That's a bad word. They were aborigines or whatever, primitive people, very wonderful, wonderful warriors. The special forces people who worked with them loved them. The Vietnamese hated them. But anyhow, so they go in there. What are we going to do? Rat meat was a big part of the diet. Have you ever seen the Vietnamese rat trap? It's the most. Einstein couldn't figure the thing out. They used it to kill rats, and they hunted with a crossbow, but they didn't give the kids the rat meat. So the GI goes in there and he plants peanuts all over the place, and it helped solve that problem. What we found was there's nothing you can do for the parents. Too late. You and I are never going to change. Nothing I can say here will change you, nothing you can say will change me. But we can change the children. And so we could teach those children hygiene, brush your teeth. We could teach them vaccination's a good thing. And that was where we put our effort, is in the children. By the way, that's the key to the war on terror too. Until we turn out generations of Arabs or whatever they are, Muslim children who grow up and know that we are not the great thing. That's the only time we'll win it. We can't win it in the short term. We just have to kill them in the meantime. But the kids, we can change, hopefully. So where was I? Doc Smith. Doc Smith, Kelly sent me up to play coop. And so I'm flying up there. Tough terrain, mountain yards all over the place. And my first casualty that I picked up was a little Vietnamese gal who had rabies. We didn't know. She was in the back seat. I took her into the doctor, took one look at her, and he says, "Get her out of here. Get her in another room." And then he got to my crew and said, "Did she touch you? Did she foam on you? Did she bite you? Anything like that?" Which the treatment then was like a needle, looked like a larding needle in the belly 12 times or something. So that was the mountain yards. They also had the plague, they also had leprosy. And in fact, the little diversion, one of my roommates, one night, we always slept with a tent, this mosquito thing, that to protect us from mosquitoes, but also from rats crawling around above us. One of them fell through his mosquito net and bit him in the chest. We couldn't find that rat. We jumped up, so he had to go through that treatment. And it was it was murder, but there was no way around it, because in those days, there was no cure for it. Yeah. So anyhow, I picked up a load of Mountain Yard patients, and I take them into the Vietnamese hospital. And I come back with another load, and they're still there. 100 and some degrees on the tarmac, hotter than hell, and they're still there. And so I jumped out and ran into said, what in the hell's going on here? They said, we don't treat Mountain Yards. They're savages. They would not take a Mountain Yard patient into their hospital. Kind of like what we went through with the blacks, I guess, many years ago. So I said, what the hell am I going to do with these guys? And so they said, take them to Doc Smith. Doc Smith's Mountain Yard Hospital at Kontum, 5-10 minutes away. So I load them up, ferry them all into her hospital. She volunteered to go to Vietnam. Got to know her later on, to go over there and take care of the lepers. And then the war came, and then she stayed on. She loved the Mountain Yard people. She took care of them in her hospital. The Vietnamese hated her, tried to kill her several times. The whole story's in the book. But I got to talking to her and found out that she went to the same university I went to. She was she lived in the same neighborhood my wife lived in, and went to the same high school my wife went to, an all-girls Catholic high school in Mount Harbor, Washington. So we kind of got to be friends, and I saw her. She was eventually run out. They overran her hospital, killed her patients. She hid in the bathtub. There were stories, and they captured one of her nurses, kept her captive, a gal from Australia, kept her captive for like a year. But the thing that sticks in my mind with her, she adopted 2 Mountain Yard children. These are Mountain Yards. These are Aborigines. Their parents are wearing loincloths, and the women are naked to the waist. I never looked though, dear. And then, and the floors in their houses are dirt, rat meat diet, and hunt tigers with crossbows. These are the kids. She found one child on the mother's breast, chest. The mother was dead. Everybody in the village was dead. DC went in and just killed them all. She grabbed that baby, took her, and then she found that baby's brother, and she adopted both of them. She had a hell of a time getting to America, but she finally did it. She got on to America. Today, one of those children is a Navy dentist, and the other one is a very, very accomplished musician. I mean, just think about that. We talk about environment, we talk about all this stuff. All a kid needs is somebody who cares about him. That's all he needs. So that was Doc Smith. And when I saw her just before she died, we were both from Washington State at that time, and she was living in a cabin out in the middle of the woods. She still wanted to go back to Vietnam and get back to the Mountain Yard. The communists had it by then, and she wanted to be buried in a log, a hollowed out log, like they buried the Mountain Yards in. And I thought, these are not noble ambitions, lady. So she had this big pet dog. Bear was the name of the dog. That thing weighed 200 pounds. It was just her and the dog out in this cabin in the middle of the wilderness when I found her. So in addition to the military, very important, the humanitarian effort with civilians like Doc Smith. I met another physician who specialized in hand injuries, and other physicians who would be specialized in some other kind of exotic disease who would volunteer their time. And they're still doing it today. Today, we still have American surgeons who served in Vietnam, who go back there annually with a friend of mine and work with those Vietnamese people to teach them medicine and to keep on helping those people. So it wasn't just the soldiers that were working humanitarian, it was the whole American community who went over there to take care of those poor people, to protect them from communists. And we failed, and as a result of our failure, hundreds of thousands of people were butchered, died, drowned in the South China Sea trying to get away. All right, you've heard enough from me. Let me hear what you got on your mind.